So, welcome everybody back. This is dotnetFlix at Techorama, the Netherlands, the first edition, 2018. And we have our special guest, Sean Feldman. So, Sean, maybe you can introduce yourself to our viewers and tell us what you do on a daily basis.
All right. My name is Sean Feldman. I'm from Canada, Calgary, more specifically. I work for Particular, makers of N-Service Bus. Who's familiar with that?
Yep.
Mostly dealing with, helping people to solve distributed messaging problems. Doing a little bit of messaging on my spare time as well. Helping out with Azure Service Bus, .NET Standard Client, things like that.
Nice.
Cool. And so you are here to talk about messaging and messaging on Azure in particular. So what kind of products are there to choose from if you look at Azure?
In particular.
In particular. It's the Easter egg.
That's what it is.
No pun intended.
No pun intended.
So I'm giving two talks. You've already one, which is Azure Messaging Crossroads, which is more of a high-level kind of overview of all the messaging services available on Azure platform. And another talk tomorrow about Azure Service Bus specifically, what's considered to be deep dive or level 666, whatever you comfortable with.
Level, are you crazy?
Yeah. So today's topic was Azure Messaging Crossroads, and it mostly focused on explaining what are the services that are available in this specific domain, with messaging going and becoming more and more relevant for pretty much any cloud-based solution that is out there. The challenges that people experiencing a lot, wherever they brand new to the cloud or not, is how to make the right selection of the service for the problem they're trying to solve.
Right.
And what doesn't make it easy is the fact that there are a lot of overlaps between different messaging services that Microsoft has created over the time, saying that they are trying to position and segment them in a way that each service services its purpose, specific purpose. So we're talking about services such as Azure Storage Queues, Azure Service Bus, Event Hubs, and Event Grid. So that's what today's talk was all about.
Okay, cool. So Event Grid is the newest one, I think, in this stack, right? And a lot of people ask me, so when should I use Event Grid, because we're using Service Bus already, and isn't it kind of the same? So what do you think are the most important differences between those two?
So Event Grid is definitely a newer addition to this family, expanding family. It's if you compare it to the rest of the services, it's the toddler of the family, not a baby anymore because they age. The question that you're asking is a good one, because it does confuse a little bit to have ability to publish, subscribe to events on Azure Service Bus and have similar capability with Event Grid. The differentiator is probably within the services. Azure Service Bus pretty much from day one was positioned as enterprise messaging service, right? Something that very reliable, it's transactional in its nature, and you are building certain topologies and exchanging messages between parts or subsystems of your system, where Event Grid is more cloud-based solution. It is more scalable and higher throughput, right? It's no longer just within the enterprise, within the organization. It basically can span multiple organizations, multiple consumers, multiple producers. And maybe a good way to explain even better what Event Grid is by telling an example, right? Let's say we're using Azure services, and within Azure services things are happening and we want to get notified, and it's no longer within my headquarters. It could be all the branches across the globe, right? And I want to be able to ensure that the messages, the events are distributed quickly to all of those subscribers, so under 1 second, end to end.
And then Azure Service could be like cloud storage, like a blob service or something like that.
So yeah, that's a really good example when storage blob or blob storage service is utilized. A blob is dropped right? And we want to respond to that blob
Yeah.
with certain action. A canonical example that I'm providing is always, the visual APIs when you want to analyze a message or water snap it. And during today's keynote, Scott Guthrie has actually demoed that by, having his face captured and identifying the age.
Yeah.
So that could be one of those services. I could be a subscriber, right, to the same blob that was captured and get his picture.
Nice.
So that's a much bigger scale, much more reactive serverless, but then you lose some of the enterprise capabilities like transactions and maybe
Correct.
some messaging patterns.
You don't gain everything. I mean, nowadays we're talking about not creating monoliths, and I think Microsoft is doing exactly the same thing. They don't want to provide monolithic services, right? When one service does absolutely everything and not really well any of that. So what is happening is with that segmentation, you don't have to stick to a single service, right? You can mix and match. You will be stitching your solution based on the needs. So if you want to respond to events published by a third party, and you're not the only responder, obviously you're going to choose event grade, right? But once you receive that event, whatever the internal processing, you can choose the services that you're comfortable with that match the criteria. For example, if you need to perform some kind of work, storage queue, which can be subscriber for event grade, is probably a good tool for that job, right? If there is something more sophisticated, you could use service bus, right, and use internal PubSub within your organization.
Yeah, so it's really this idea of polyglot, and you can mix and match whatever you need to build your own solution.
Correct.
You have to take the context into consideration. What is it you want to do? And also, I think that for a lot of people that are working on cloud, also costs are a factor, of course. Because I think that designing your messaging infrastructure, you also have to take into consideration what is the cheapest way, or what is the what is the best way to do that. So I think that's very important.
Cost consideration is one of the things because, for example, with event grade, you're really interested in events and you don't want to pay for anything other than events that you're consuming or publishing, right? With other solutions such as enterprise messaging, where you want to have a constant processing of the messages that you receive, you're actually willing to pay a higher cost, right, for reliability, for the features that can be provided out of the box. So again, it is about cost efficiency, but it's also about the context and what is the problem that you're trying to solve.
And then we've got the other big service, Event Hub. And where does that service come in?
So Event Hubs is a very interesting service because I really like to call it ingester because it's highly optimized and its purpose not for general messaging, but to be able to consume streams of messages, high volume messages, right? Events usually, wherever it's telemetry or some other source that produces those events, and then being able to process those at your own conditions and pace.
Right. So it's more like an entry point of getting the messages into Azure.
Exactly. Exactly. And as I like to give it as an example, it's one of the most favorite services to ingest data into Azure. And again, because Event Hubs has built-in features to automatically store those events in Azure storage, right? Or you can create the users, the consumers, and read the data at your own speed. It becomes very handy.
So what I liked about your session is that you had some examples on the pricing of some of these services. I'm not sure about the numbers, but you had an example for event pricing, and it came down to like €2, maybe €2.5
so
for how many messages?
We're talking about the lowest throughput that you can get, which is a single throughput unit, which allows you to ingest around 1,000 messages per second. And the calculation ends up with the throughput unit and all the events for a day around €2 or $2.5 US dollars, and roughly 84 gigs of data.
So pretty cheap.
Exactly. Pennies.
Nice.
And so these are all Azure services, obviously. So you already talked about that you work for Particular, and you've got this product and service bus. So I guess you also got some clients that are not ready to go to the cloud yet, but are running stuff on premises. I don't think we've got a real Microsoft product right now in the market for on-premises offerings, do we?
So that's a good question. What we used to call on-premises nowadays seems to be labeled as Edge, right?
Yeah.
So there is a push to have more and more things on Edge. It's very difficult to retrofit certain services that were designed to run in the cloud to run on premises, and also even if you do that, usually you would get something that is more of an emulator than the service itself. So for example, storage queues. Azure Storage Queues, you have an emulator which you can run locally, but you will never get the same experience. Now saying that, for services that are designed with that intention, such as InventGrid, it is much more possible to bring those services on premises as well, or should I say, closer to the edge.
Are we talking Azure Stack then, or is it a separate product that you can run on premises?
So Azure Stack is a slightly different case because with Azure Stack you are sort of bringing a minified version of cloud with very restricted number of services that support Azure Stack, and also kind of lagging slightly behind because obviously cannot be one-to-one mapping. When we talk about supporting running on the edge, we're talking probably almost one-to-one mapping to what's available in the cloud. And personally, I believe that it's more of a hybrid solution than necessarily running all the time offline, so that you can offload as much as possible to the edge, but still continue working with the cloud.
And especially in scenarios where you've got bursty behavior, it's interesting to run in the cloud because you get all this elasticity, which you may not have on the edge or your on-premises.
And at the same time, you also kind of want to have that edge experience because not always you have the connectivity. You might have occasionally connected or occasionally disconnected old applications, right? And once in a while, connection is dropping, but you still have to continue with the business.
So basically we're back to mix and matching and doing stuff
it
polyglot.
definitely looks like the future is going to be not unidirectional.
Okay, cool. So thank you very much for stopping by in our cozy booth here. I'm looking forward to the deep dive session tomorrow. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. See you later.
Bye-bye.